afternoon, all of you. Today, the Election Observation Group deployed observers to be able to observe the ongoing Law Society of Kenyan elections, which are being held across the entire country. And ELOG deployed 20 observers in 20 polling stations in different parts of the country. I'll be able to go through the list of the 20 polling stations that we were able to deploy. And we are releasing this particular statement right now just to give updates about how the process has gone since morning when we started the observation process, and what we've been able to collect thus so far in terms of the incidences and what we usually call within electoral parlance our preliminary findings. Just to state the observation methodology that ELOG was employing, we deployed, like I said, 28 observers. 21 of them were stationary, 5 of them who were mobile or roving, 2 observers who were at the tallying center to form the total number of 28. And their work was to observe and report on the setup, the opening of the polls, the voting, counting, tallying, and finally the announcement of the results using what we usually have as standardized reporting tools. These are the preliminary findings so far. So in terms of the opening and the setup of the polling stations, our observers were permitted to observe, to access all the polling stations that we had sampled. In 45% of them, of the polling stations, we had a woman as the presiding officer. We noted that there was security personnel that was present in 85% of those polling stations. And then there was an average of 6 election officials who were present at each of the polling stations, deployed, of course, to conduct those elections. All the sampled, while half of the polling stations opened at 8 a.m., which was the designated time, all the remaining others were able to open by 9. So there was a delay of about an hour before all the sampled polling stations were opened. We had the other observation as far as the opening was concerned is that when ELOG observers went to these polling stations, they registered the number of agents who were available to participate or to observe the process on behalf of their candidates. And based on the numbers and the reports from these observers, 75% of agents in those sampled stations were for the president. The vice president's agents were available by 65% of the polling stations, and the general member representative were also 85%. For the JSC, there was a 75% representation, and the position that had the lowest presence of candidate agents was a coast representative at 15%. In terms of deployment of the strategic election materials, remember that in all elections, there are materials that we expect to find in our polling stations for purposes of ensuring a smooth flow of the process. So we noted that all the requisite strategic materials were present in polling stations where we were. This included ballot boxes, which were also shown to be empty in all the polling stations observed. And then there was the secrecy of the ballot. This was an election where secrecy of the ballot was upheld. So in all the polling stations, this was observed. And then in terms of the ballot boxes themselves, there were 8 color-coded ballot boxes for the 8 positions which were in contestation. So we had ballot boxes. It was easy to be able to identify those ballot boxes because they were color-coded. Now, by 11:30, in respect to voter turnout, we had 12.53% of the voters coming through. So this was 1,108 voters out of the 8,834. that, of course, from just our own statistical point of view, that was actually a very low number considering that this was in the morning. But this was mainly attributable by the fact that these elections were being conducted on a day where court cases were also ongoing, and we know that most of the court cases usually happen in the morning. So the expectation is that those numbers will be able to turn up or to grow by the afternoon. So those are the numbers that we had by 11:30 a.m. In terms of different areas and the numbers, Kakamega Law Courts recorded the highest number at 45.2%, followed by the Malindi Law Courts, where the numbers were at 33.7%. Meru Law Courts registered 30.2%. Kericho and Kitale Law Courts registered 29%. Milimani Law Courts, which is polling station number 1 in the country, recorded the lowest turnout at 5% as at that particular time, which was 11:30 a.m. Now, in terms of some of the critical incidences that our observers were able to come across, one of them included the fact that we had an observer who was initially not permitted to participate or to access the polling station by a presiding officer, but this was later sorted out, and the said observer was allowed to gain access to that polling station. But we also had a number of incidences where persons were turned away for lack of proper identification documents. And we also had incidences like a voter who was in Machakos Law Courts who was turned away because he was registered elsewhere. So that was another incident. In one of the other incidences, we had a voter, upon being stopped from voting since they lacked identification documents, they confiscated the voter register from the officials who are manning the process. Our conclusions as at this particular point is that we note that the processes, of course, are ongoing. This is our preliminary statement, basically giving details of the early part of the process up to this time. And because the process is ongoing, ELOG will continue observing the remaining processes, including the final announcement of the results, and we shall be able, therefore, to provide further updates on this particular exercise. We look forward to engaging with the public again as soon as we get much more information. Once the closing is over, we'll be able to give out our closing statement, and then after that, once we have gotten the final tallies from the different polling stations, we'll be able to update the country or give our overall findings from that electoral process that is ongoing. So that is a brief from the Elections Observation Group. We will keep you posted on the new developments. Thank you very much.